But you never even sent me one of your like a intro or shit, like your
Oh,
bio.
a bio? Ah,
Yeah.
shit. I can send you one right now.
Yeah,
There's a
send
link.
it. Perfect. 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 My blind ass. Man, hell no. I'm gonna have to wing this shit.
It's funny. I forgot who. Oh, I don't know if you ever met. You remember he
Yeah.
went to McMain with us?
Yeah.
So we were at the parade, and he's like looking at it. He's reading his phone, bro. This dude's like this, like literally, like stretched out. And I
You get
thought, obviously, I'm gonna talk shit. And he's like, "You got no place to talk shit. You got glasses on." I was like, "You're right. You're right."
bro, it's we get into
but
them
but
days. We get into
but
them
that's the
times.
old man. That's the old man shit. Like we literally have to stretch out your phone to read it. I was like, damn.
Oh man, I'm not looking forward to that shit. So, first one of these episodes. This is the Mastermind with James Allen. I am him. He is I. And today we've got a guest. This guy needs no introduction. He is director of business and strategy for Bacchanal Wine and Elysian Bar. One of the owners of Elysian Bar as well. Doing big shit all over the city. Proud to call this guy not just a friend, but a brother of mine. He's just a solid dude. And so first, welcome Adrian Mendez. What's going on, man?
Man, I'm excited to be on this. I'm excited you taking on this journey. Excited to be, the guinea pig to try to make this, into when we look back at the multi-million dollar views and all that.
Right. Well, I guess we're gonna have to go viral, man. So you're gonna have to make
Yeah,
some viral takes. I did tell you
absolutely.
I call you the El Salvadorian Dave Dash. So yeah, man. Go ahead. Go
I
go
got
ahead and go viral
cookies.
with it.
I got these cookies. My son got cookies. My dog's got cookies.
Right, right. Go crazy, man. Shit. Yeah. Anything
Yeah,
for these clicks. Nah, but
right.
nah, man, I do appreciate you being here because I know you're super busy. You've got a lot going
All good.
on. I mean, I know you well. Some people who are going to see
Right.
this, they may not know. Ever since I've met you, bro, like, what? Oh, 2012. I mean, um, that's a whole other
Probably
story.
boy before no, we started school in 12.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, 09, 08, 09, 08.
Yeah.
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 Um, that's a whole other story though about how I met you, man. You was on some
I was out
got
here.
got played
I
me,
got you a job though. I got you a job though.
bro. You got the whole squad job. You put.
Right.
I was gonna talk about that too. You put everybody on,
I was
man.
like, I got jobs. Come on, let's go.
Right. Man of the people, dog. For real, for real.
Right.
Nah, but even in that job, man, when I first met you, bro, you've always kind of been on like big on leadership, entrepreneurship. You've always kind of been on that, man. And for you, where did that come from?
I mean, it really comes down to like my my upbringing with my family. My family had a small restaurant. At one point, the family had four. My parents owned one. It got to be part of my upbringing where we came from like the brute force in making it work when I was working at it when I was like 11, 12,
Yeah,
like real ass shifts, being a busboy and shit. And, you know, and then seeing the consequences that came with it. Right. And I think
yeah,
that's the part that my parents were very transparent with me. I owe them a lot for that because they never sugarcoated anything. Like, if anything, they always treated me as an adult and always treated me as like almost like a mini partner, but like, yo, we're in this. Like, this is all great and all, but if this
yeah.
closes tomorrow, guess what? There's no food at home. We got to figure this out. And so it was
Nah,
kind
that's
of a
real.
that level of transparency, and also they gave me a huge amount of level just responsibility very early on, right? And it kind of built through that. But sometimes it was very much jump in the deep end and kind of get exposed to it. But all through that, I got to meet so many other small business owners. I think entrepreneurship to me is just being a small business owner. It's the same thing, right? So
Right, right.
and got to see like there's always the grass is always greener, right? And it's like there are those businesses that it's owner operated like my family had, and it's hard, it's work, but there is levels success and prosperity that you get to have, because you get to have a banking relationship, you get to have relationships with other business owners, you get to meet, you get to build a community that you kind of take it for granted. At least I did, because it was kind of around me all the time. But and then you get that independence. It's a double-edged sword, because you have to be there, but sometimes you do, if you are able to be fortunate enough to build it to a certain way. You do my parents got to take month-long trips, once they kind of figured things out. They got to take vacations. So I think that, to me, is has always, motivated me to share what I know, what I saw, but also for a long time, and still to this day, I can say I've always been in the pursuit of understanding how to grow beyond the four walls, right? To a certain extent, that box that my parents had as a restaurant had a lot of limitations. Right. And so, and I didn't know at the time. It's okay, we always talked about having a whole bunch of different restaurants and opening more, but none of us knew how to do it. None of us knew what the steps were to go get funding, and you just kind of knew the more brute force way of you have to come up with the cash to do it. And then that's usually a lot of immigrants kind of take that route. Of just consolidating and making this little thing work. And so I think part of my work has always been how do I figure this out? Because my previous generation didn't got to where they were, but they didn't necessarily figured these things out. And so scaling to me has always been a curiosity in how to do it well. And then that led to understanding what funding looks like. How do you make it work for different things? And then that led me to how do you build teams to really sustain any kind of scaling? How do you lead people? How do you manage people? How do the managers manage people? How do you build a culture? And all these things kind of been in the hodgepodge of careers that I've had, things that I'm always kind of been trying to dig and understand. And at the same time, as the things that I did understand, I always think of, I think if I am able to share these lessons that I have to people, I do. I'm I'm gonna tell you what I figured out, and what maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't, and I'll be candid about it. And that's usually how
go about that thought process. Yeah, no, for sure. So let's talk about. I mean, that was a great, hearing about your origins, and since then, like we just talked about, you've been in education. Dipped your toe in to see what it was like in a big time law firm, consultant work, VC industry. Thinking about, you kind of went all the way around the world on everything, and it still brought you back to restaurants and hospitality. Bro, how did you get there? What is it? Elysian Bar, for one, shout out to Elysian Bar and Bacchanal Wines in New Orleans. Yo, if y'all haven't been there, go there, check it out. You know what I'm saying? Bottles on Adrian, for one, you know what I'm saying? Get that top shelf.
Try to find me first.
But that's crazy, bro, because literally you've done a lot of things and been successful at a lot of these things as well, but you still chose to go that route. So what was the thought process there?
Yeah. To a certain extent, the previous thing that I did prior to hospitality, I was running a consultancy. And, I was 50-50 owner on it, and we ran it for about 4 years, and we touched on a whole bunch of different things, different industries, biotech, education, manufacturing. And our purpose was to kind of help entrepreneurs scale, right? It was a difficult business to run and operate. Like a small boutique consultancy is, you eat what you kill, and it's feast or famine, and it happens. Sometimes you're like, holy shit, it's working, it's happening. And then later you're like, holy shit, how are we going to pay these bills? And so, I think post-college, post-Katrina, I ran the restaurant, my family's restaurant, for 1 year after Katrina. And after that, I never stepped foot into another restaurant, at least as an operator, until I came into in-house, and Bacchanal was one of my clients, and we're helping them scale. It really came down to the relationship, I think, that I have with the managing partner, Joaquin, who has been like a family. We call each other cousins, but we're not cousins. He's like an older. I just
learned last year, Joaquin is not a blood cousin, but he's
family. Right. him and I build, but also like the amount of work that went into building the structure of making one business really, really successful, and then putting the structure so that it can scale, to me was like intellectually motivating, right? And it's tangible. And so when I decided to go in-house, jump on board with Bacchanal, was very much like, okay, cool. Like, I know all this stuff. I did all this searching, right? And like gathering information and understanding, like now I can, at this point, I can be in the driver's seat and put these things into application and see if I really do know the shit. And guess what? There's a lot of stuff that I didn't know. And there's a lot of stuff I still don't know. And I still got to learn. You know what I mean?
Talk about it. Yeah, man. And I definitely hear just from talking to you a lot, how you're putting those experiences, to work and what that's been like. So that's super dope. Super dope. Hearing you talk just a second ago, you were telling me about, the feast and famine and how it's like 1 month or period, you're up and you're rolling that momentum. And then the next period, you're like, damn, like, how are we going to put this together and make ends meet? And a lot of, in my business, I'm calling you right now, like calling you, I'm like, oh shit, we up, we outside. Right. And then it's popping. Like, yeah, it's popping. And it's like, oh man, just kind of that seasonality of real estate. So those are two things I wanted you to touch on. For one, how do you manage the down periods? Like, how do you manage those difficult times? It's very stressful mentally. That stuff can impact you physically, and the different relationships. And then one thing we don't talk about is how we manage success. Because a lot of times when it's up, you're pretty much you're spending right. Like you're up.
Yeah.
And
and for a long time I didn't know. Straight up. I didn't know how. I just didn't know. And I would say probably just really bad habits that would compensate for the emotional aspects, right? Everybody always talks about like business is not personal, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, nah, like this is your life. Like this is you, no matter what you're doing, especially when you're putting your energy and your intellect and your name behind it. And it feels, you're building something and you get to a certain level of where like, even if it's not like super, super successful, but you've crafted something, right? And so there's a kind of artistic aspect of it, if you will, the creativity aspect that we put something that actually is working. I think for me, for a long time, I didn't know. And I think I compensated by doing like, partying or like being distracted and da, 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 da. And
you were outside like that?
Right, exactly. And I think it came to a point where I had to realize like, I had to create better habits and really like think about how to manage my energy and how to think about like what my mental state like, right? As much as I can always, want to think that I'm mentally strong or whatever, understanding that mental health is not a flat continuum, right? And what are the things that affect it is the things that you're living in, including the thing that you do every day, which is the business you're trying to build and grow.
Exactly.
And one of the interview I saw a long time ago, I forget who it was somebody that was running like a fund or some type of financial vehicle. And she said something that was really interesting. It was like, when you're up, there's like that feeling of euphoria and joy. But when you're down and it's something that you built and grown, like the down is much more down than you going to your job and you had a bad day at work.
Yes, bro.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like that shit, it like at least for me, my shoulders tighten up and there's nothing that I can go home and unplug from that. I'm still carrying it. And so just learning how to like unwind that and learning how like, all right, cool. There will be some downs and learning how to like process that. I'm still trying to learn how to do it, but now I'm just a lot more aware of it, that it's happening. And so really like there will be another day. It will be shinier tomorrow. Like having that optimism, it's really it's switching your mindset, because like your brain is going to default to like fear. It's going to default to like comfort, like find comfort immediately, however you do that for yourself. And it's just like, but the cranking doesn't stop. And so then like more things trigger you, and you kind of like get real tense. And so it's just like, whether it's exercise, talking to your partner, whatever it is going on. For me, I love going on long ass walks. Like I really go on, a couple, like 4 or 5 mile walk. And sometimes I put a podcast.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sometimes I put a podcast, or sometimes I literally just play like meditation music, getting, centered and clear in your mind, that because, and what was the second part of that question? You had a 2-part, success.
Yeah. How you manage your success and how you manage the downtimes.
The success, somebody asked me about this. I think maybe for me, it's still like, I don't think I'm successful. Right. So, and that's my own, like, I don't know what, I have to work through that because I think of the things that I want to accomplish. And that's not always just monetarily. I think it's just like overall the things that I want to pursue. And so, but I'm okay with that. Like, I don't go home and cry. I'm like, I'm not successful. And more importantly, I've really over time, and I think part of my personality in many ways has always been like, I try to limit how much gratification I get, how much external gratification I get, right? How much like accolades drive me and motivate me versus how much I can be internally motivated. Not to say that it doesn't, it helps. It does help, so I try to like keep that in mind, but I'm trying to understand it. There's a better way to celebrate the success, but like not be, I guess my personal hesitation or maybe even fear or whatever is just like getting stuck in celebrating the success, right? And then being like, oh, I'm complacent, and being complacent is very scary for me. So
yeah, absolutely. You and me talk about that a lot. Going back to man, you hit on a couple of things that, I mean, you and I are, very big on. But before I dive in that, just about the energy and how you're taking care of yourself, those down periods, bro, from what I'm now seeing are very, very necessary. Like just taking those lumps and those experiences. I mean, like that's it makes me stronger. It makes me a stronger business owner. It makes me stronger within my industry. And I just think about, now when I'm handling a deal and, it's whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars, be able to handle this and take the heat that comes with that before you go to like doing the $1 million deals. You know what I mean? Right. Does that make sense? Right. So yeah, as the numbers go up and you deal larger piles of money, you got to be able to, to take those lumps. So I would say the one thing though, when you are in those downs, and that's for anybody, including myself, like the hard skill to learn, and it varies for everybody, is to actually understand how to like, that you have to forcefully push yourself to get out of the down, right? Yep. Learning how to kick back, because it can be like completely paralyzing when you're down. It can be very paralyzing. And when you're paralyzed, you don't realize you're paralyzed. You're just like, I won't move because this will pass, right? And so learning how to kick, and it's not easy, and it's so like just really like, and I don't mean like, be all like, all by yourself, but it's just really having that support system or having somebody that can help you, or like, but learn that when you are down, there has to be a process, and learning that process, I think, is what I'm trying to carve out for myself, because there are going to be downs. That is just the game. Absolutely. I'm actually reading a book right now, Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've read it. Awesome. Have you heard about it?
I've heard about it. Yeah,
it's a very good book. And it's, for those types of slumps, it's a really good book on pushing yourself and going forward. But about the energy too, I wanted to touch on that. Man, I've noticed when I cut out the alcohol, drink less, I'm working out, like other things that may not directly go into my business, when I'm consistent, actually those things help out with consistency, working out, doing my prayers, reading, and doing all these other things, just kind of, I guess, so to speak, I'm not like a big energy Zen guy, but I'm just saying, like, when I'm vibrating at a higher level, like I see how that pours over into my business, and things just start to click, man. And it's things out of nowhere, like deals will just, essentially fall into my lap. I didn't know how much do you value anything like that, or if you feel the same. And where do you kind of get at, internally to where you're at your best? What do you do to get there?
Yeah. I think one of the biggest lessons that I'm learning about myself is for a long time, I had the ability, or I think I had the ability to like just brute force myself through it, right? So like, I'm smart enough, I know enough, and I'm going to figure it out, right? And
just you good to tell somebody how smart you are, bro. For real. Go ahead, bro.
But that was to a level that hubris, but also it got me places, right? And so I was able to power through and just kind of get, brute force it. And I think what I didn't realize is when I wasn't doing those things with the right habits and all that, there was a level of hard that was just present, right? This is going to be hard. Like this meeting's going to suck, or this going through this is going to be a pain in the ass. And it just made everything more sludge, if that makes sense, more speed bumps.
Yep.
And when I got to, just being a little more mature with life, and shout out to my wife
wifey Mendez, for real.
Right.
I came back to New Orleans. I was like, who the hell is this guy? Right. Changed for the better, man. That's what's up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it she's an extremely calm person, and she is a very Zen person overall. And so it's just kind of like calmed me down. And I think what I realize is like, when I do have the routine, when I do have like the things that I do every day, and I'm in a positive place of having the consistency in my life and having like the things, man, things just happen, and they happen easy, right? Yes, like, okay, man, that was supposed to be really hard, but I was okay. I made it happen. And I'm like, sometimes I'm shocked, like, wow, damn, that I thought that was going to be way harder than it was. And it was possibly a really hard thing, but I think having your mental state and your energy to be in a place that things don't overwhelm you, because being overwhelmed is part of this, right? And managing your stress is the thing you need to learn. Managing the overwhelmness and being in a good place is the thing that allows you to succeed in many ways, because there's always going to be a fire to put out. There's always going to be a detrimental thing happening. And it's how you react, right? And it's how you learn how to react to these things that can make or break you, or just not even break you, just make things more difficult.
Yep. Yep. Again, that's why, going back to just those down periods, those experiences make you stronger. So, man, definitely agree with you there. Got another question, but I was just thinking about, remember when we started talking about undergrad, that one conversation I had when we first met? No. Man, hey, shout out to UT Arlington for once. My God.
First of all, I didn't remember your name for like the first 5 times we met.
Right. Call me Jack or Jason, something. I'm pushing you down. No, but because you went to University of Chicago, and we were just talking about, I was like, I went to UTA. He was like, where is that? You tried to play my school, man. But yeah, shout out to UT Arlington, man, the Mavericks. Yeah, we on the map.
Yes, shout them out.
Man, talking about stress, and I don't want to like the goddamn down entrepreneurship podcast, but right now, what are some of your stressors in your day-to-day, like as of right now within business?
I think in perpetuity for me, at least where I'm at, right, is understanding like how to build systems around things.
Yes.
But there's a fine line of over optimizing, right? And so, because it's, at least for me, my brain defaults to like, okay, let's optimize this shit. Like, okay, cool. And there's a point where like that last push, that last, 90 to 95%, is it good enough? Is it not? And how much energy and time does that even take to get to that 95%, and why, right? And so over optimizing is something that can, if you're looking down, it's easy to just constantly focus on that. And it takes you, it's all about your time and how you spend it.
Can you give an example when you're talking about optimizing? Like, I mean, is it like Are you like fully automating a system? Like what do you necessarily
Yeah,
talk about?
well, yes, to a certain extent that, but more in the current business that I'm in, we're a very people centric
Right.
place, right? And
Right.
so, what's the difference between having a job description V1 versus a V5? Tremendous, right? But once you get to
Gotcha.
that
Gotcha. Gotcha.
V5, you do you really need to spend another 5 meetings to do a V6, right? And so, and you could, and I
Right.
think it's just that's the part of the part of scaling, especially at the size that we're in. It was like only a few of us in the team to try to make it work. Like, no, I need to be spending my time on thinking about what the growth plan is and looking at these plans and all this other thing. So that's one thing. And then the other thing around systems is just developing people, right? I think that's the part that is really important. Developing people and having organizations that allow that and build people up. And so that's something that keeps me, I wouldn't say keeps me up at night, but it does keep me in terms of like having talent and growing talent is really important.
I mean, and that's a scary thing to talk about. Like, having talent, developing the talent, pouring into them, especially in a market like New Orleans where there's so much, competition within the hospitality space. How do you really manage that retention and looking at it like from an optimistic point of view, like how you want to pour into these people, your team, not these people, but your team, because they can up and leave you. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
and it's the same in my industry too. Like people typically join and want to come on, on a team just to learn it to do their own thing, eventually, which is
right.
cool. But how do you really balance? Like, all right, how much are you going to pour and put energy? Because I could put energy over there. I could be closing deals or do
Yeah,
whatever.
I think the one thing that I like to think about it when we think about the businesses that we build or that I build or that I'm involved in is building places that you have people come to you, and whether they stay 3 months, 3 years, 20 years, they leave better than they came, and they leave knowing as much as possible, becoming better professionals. And I think for that, and I don't think it's necessarily hospitality centric. We've seen it in many industries that both you and I have worked in or seen is if somebody is, whatever, there's a reason why people think, you worked at Goldman Sachs, something, right? Because the
Right.
selection process is really difficult because it's very selective. And then ultimately, theoretically, it's really hard to work in. And if you do that for a couple of years, some shit, right?
Yeah.
Versus maybe having the same kind of job and having the same urgency at a mid-tier firm that no one really knows outside of that region, right? And so
Right.
part of it is like, okay, building companies where people are like, oh wow, you worked with so and so, you really know your stuff. You know what I mean? Oh wow, you spend how much time there? They really know how to execute properly. So they treat the people well, they train them well, and they develop them well. And so that's kind of those are the things that keep me up at night about thinking about how to implement these things, because it's easier said than done when you actually are currently operating and things are constantly happening, right? How do you pause and develop? And so those are the things that we're trying to figure out as much as possible. But yeah, but it does, it's gonna sting when somebody you spend time with, you're like, man, yeah. And sometimes people leave well and they leave in a very good place, and sometimes they don't, and I
gonna
think
do
that's
this shit to me? No.
right. Yeah. But if they spend time with you and then they go build something, to a certain extent, like, kudos to you, man. You were able to be like literally that launch pad, and you created an environment where people felt like they learned enough to try to give it a shot, And guess what? The grass is always greener. Oftentimes people come back, they're like, oh my God, thank you for the lessons, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, it's not that easy to go out and do it.
So in your industry, so somebody may be watching this, trying to get into the industry, they don't know where to start. The advice you would give them, about getting started, or some advice you would have given yourself at 18 years old, some tips you can give them about, getting into the hospitality industry.
Hospitality, I mean, I think it's one of those sectors where there's a low barrier to entry. Depends on how you see it, right? And the scale of it can go from, someone literally selling food in a corner with like a little table that they popped up on to, multi-million-dollar restaurants. Getting into it is actually doing the thing. If you're trying to be in restaurants or food and beverage, if it's beverage, get the beverages out there, get going, get doing it. And nowadays, I think there's so many people that can actually build a following through social media, through executing. So it's the amplification of what you're doing can go much further. That being said, like, you have to understand that like social media is part of the job, right? Just because you make really good food and no one knows about it except for your friends, that means you're not really doing your job. Right. If you're trying to do it, if you're going to run a business in this day and age, that's a public facing business, like a restaurant, you literally are building a box where you're asking thousands of people to come in, and that's how you succeed. If not, you're paying rent for that box and you're going to be broke if you can get people. So like really understanding that dynamic. And if you learn it in a small scale, then you can learn it on the bigger scale. But also like you can go through the ranks too, like go work at places that are highly operational, that high performing, learn how they do their systems. Learning the systems that they have is great. Get some leadership under you and learn. The hardest part, I think, once you kind of start building your brand and all that, is really like learning how to manage teams, learning how to manage people and doing it well. And then, kind of go from there. But I think there's a lot of porous ways to get into the industry. Right.
Talking about, different ways to get in and the skills, what would you probably say is the number one skill, the top skill to have in your industry? Particularly for what you do, like running something.
Yeah. Just I would say probably what comes to mind is just being comfortable with ambiguity, right? And being in an ambiguous environment where it constantly changes, where things come at you. For anybody that's listening to this, that's in the industry, you're constantly firefighting because you're in a place where you're inviting hundreds of people on a daily basis. And that's kind of the goal. Things are going to ultimately go wrong. Hopefully not that wrong, but you mitigate for it. Whether it's whatever, the water went out, the ice machine broke, the delivery didn't come in today, the internet's not working, now we can't use the QR codes, all these things happen, right? So how do you roll with the punches and roll with it and in a leadership position, how do you do it with like that confidence, but also, I wouldn't even say fearless, but just like that joy, right? We're doing it, it's going to happen, we're all going to be okay. People ran restaurants without internet for hundreds of years. It's going to be okay. Today we're going to get through it. And just that energy has to like flow into the people that are with your team, because if you start to freak out, then guess what? It goes down the line real fast.
Yeah, it does. When I first started in education, I remember you coming by and checking on me, and it was probably the first month in, like reporting, and I was just like, at that time I was working crazy hours, and it was starting to show, and I was becoming unraveled. And I remember you told me about the ducks in the pond. He's like, bro, ducks in the pond. So ain't nobody trying to hear that shit. But I mean, honestly, you were right though. I mean, but yeah, you're just like, hey man, like people are looking at you, that energy, you're giving off that energy, whether it be positive, or negative. So, make sure you're watching that. No, man, definitely appreciate that. So we're talking a lot about work, talking a lot about, what's going on over there in Bacchanal and Elysian bar. But how's everything, man? Like with you, I mean, yeah, newlywed. We just talked about wifey Mendez. Shout out to her. And then you got your kid dog. And so, I mean, like, how is everything? How's the work-life balance? Because like I said, we talked about you going crazy over there. Not going crazy, but you're moving around. You're doing a lot. So
the puppy's been awesome. It's been great. I think, we're thinking about a family, all the things that are happening, building a home, right? And that's the thing that I can't
wait till you get to that point. Oh, I can't wait.
Right.
Oh, man.
We're looking for looking for houses and kind of figuring out lightly, thinking about what that looks like.
Right.
At home, it's very much like, supporting my wife in her endeavors. She's in the real estate game now and the short-term rental game as well.
Dope.
And I think it's just really finding that ebb and flow between us, and just kind of having that place where you can go home and enjoy yourselves, but also you can go home and continue to build. Right. Yeah. And so I think in that sense, my wife and I have a very similar mindsets. Like we have great conversations because we enjoy what we're doing and we're trying to continue to grow.
Are you the type that comes home and you're like, talks about your day and you'll continue to talk about your day? And so, or when after you close the door, you're like, yo, yeah, what's up with Netflix? Or, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
It depends on the day, but usually right. if I have a tough day, I kindly say to my wife that I will let her know everything that happened, just not right now. Because it's, especially if I had like, a 4-hour meeting that was like that, like just exhausting. The very last thing I want to do is go home and literally replay this very exhausting moment. I just need to replenish and like re-energize, and everything will be shared. Nothing will be withheld, but it's just like, let me get the moment to replenish and get back and just like shake it up a little bit.
It's very difficult, bro. When you're in a household with 2 entrepreneurs, it's very difficult. Right. You guys have that situation. I have that at home as well, and a few others. And it's just really interesting, man. So, and with little kids, and you're talking about y'all building a family. That's why I can't wait. Yeah. Oh man, when you call me, man, I'm gonna just start laughing. Misery loves company right now. I'm joking.
Right. Hey, for real.
Shout out to my little demons, man. I love it. We're talking about consistency and in the business and how that helps. I'm always interested to hear about how high performing like people, what their morning routine is like. Do you have a morning routine? Are you big on that? Are you not? You don't really buy into that shit, or like how do you feel?
No, I'm always aspiring to it, is what I would say. Do I accomplish it? Yeah. Do I accomplish it every day? No, but I think part of it is just having, if there is anything that does work for me, is like up in like, 7:00. That's usually when we get up, and getting up and moving as soon as possible. That really helps. Now that we have a dog, try to get him out, do a quick little walk, but then like going straight into like me working out, right? Like, whether it's like a long walk, a mini short run, whatever, and just getting my body movement, that to me sets the day tone, like the tone of the day much better. I recently, just like in the morning, I'm not a big breakfast person, but I started eating like overnight oats, right? Just so I have something in my stomach. And I'm not like going to the coffee shop and like getting a pastry and a coffee and just kind of moving in that direction. It's just like, all right, now I don't have, my brain doesn't have to think about, I need food, right? And now I have, substance. And then really like the battle is, to me, if like you can win the battle between 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. to really like 10 a.m., maybe 11, depends on how the skill is, you can do a lot. If you can kind of get all that structure in there, like sit down and do your to-do list for the day or for the week, and really kind of, or revisit the plan, and just like, all right, cool, I got to do these emails and they're going to suck, but I got to sit down and do them. Right. And so try to get as much as possible early in the day. Then that leaves kind of a little bit more time for you to have the meetings and things like that. I try to manage my meeting time, right? So that I do have like, maybe my first meeting is at 11. So I have that time in the morning to really maximize what I do with my time. It's hard because sometimes you're like, oh, I don't have anything until 11. And you're like, no, you do.
Right. Yeah. you got a lot to do. You got a lot to do.
But it's like, sometimes I'm trying to learn better at like not making the meeting the work, right? Doing the work before the meeting and doing the work after the meeting, so that it doesn't necessarily constantly be, and that depends, and sometimes, when I work in the restaurants, it's more like you're locked in, right? So you kind of have to, for me, it's like, all right, cool. How do I give it my full attention while I'm here, to make sure that I'm succeeding at the role that I have on the floor.
I'm very much so big on the morning routine. Like you said, sometimes
You've been succeeding at the morning routine for a long time, though, man.
Yeah,
You really.
I appreciate that.
It always impressed me, and it always, I think one thing that I always learned from you is you have a level of discipline that when you put your mind to it, you're consistent, and that plays out. And that the morning routine, you've been doing it for a long time, even with kids. That shit is hard.
It started by reading that book, Miracle Morning, and bro, that book, it's easy to read too. I mean, like literally could read it in one day, but it really just kind of breaks down, the benefits of having that routine and the things to do within. And you do a lot of them already, like exercising, but it's also, maybe meditation, affirmations, visualization, like you're saying, writing down your day, your to-do list, the journaling. All those things, getting your mind right and taking that time before you go out into the world, respond to emails, look at your phone, all that kind of stuff is very, man, like that's one of the things too. If you can really manage that part of your day, you're winning your day, and your day can really take off.
Absolutely.
And so, yeah, I've been really trying to focus and stay on that. Some periods are better than others, but yeah,
right.
Like when I'm locked into it, like you're saying, it's a go. Because I really wanted to come back to some of this other stuff, bro. The economy right now. I really want to talk about that, and I'm always interested to hear about the current state of the economy, how that impacts your business, sales, and also to the cost of goods and all those things. Like, can you just talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we can talk about COVID, right? The first thing that went away is restaurants, like that's literally like, they were like, ground zero is restaurants. Like, do not go to restaurants. And that was very like shocking to us. And the concepts that we run are experience driven concepts. And so us pivoting to takeout and doing all this other stuff, it really didn't give you the magic. And it really, we're not built for that. We're built for you to be inside of our spaces and enjoy it and kind of like get lost in it. And so,
it's the experience.
That was experience, and that, that got completely taken away. And so, I think rebuilding from that, relearning how to do it, and rethinking how to properly structure the safety protocols, who comes in and who doesn't, what does it mean, how to enforce policies, how to be consistent about it. So a lot of pivoting and learning and relearning and constantly, I mean, I can tell you somebody got exposed, how many days they got to take before we test them. Like, we test them in-house. We've done weekly testing, all kinds of things. And so it's just like how to, first and foremost, protect the people that we work with, protect the staff, protect the team as much as possible so that they can succeed at work was always the most important part. And then, making sure that we have a place that people can thrive and succeed on a daily basis. And then, but yeah, I mean, the restaurant game is always going to be kind of at the, I would say to a certain extent, in a volatile way, but also like, I read a while back, when there's difficulties economically, you might not take the trip to Hawaii, but you might go out to eat a little bit more. You might go to the barbershop more. You might get your nails done a little bit more. So there's a little bit of elasticity in terms of the durability of the hospitality world, right? But I think you start to see it too, right? We have so many more tourists in New Orleans now, and they're coming here because it's a really easy trip, and you're still domestic. You still kind of get access, and so that the city is actually really reviving. But the price of things are hitting us. The shrimp is like double. You can look at a whole bunch of our items and like the price is like gone up 75%, gone up, more than double. And you're looking at it, you're like, wow. And so you have to adjust your prices, and you have to be fluid, and you have to re-engineer what you have and what you offer, right? We think about like, what is the composition of your dishes, composition of your bar, or your drinks. You might not be able to get these extra premium ingredients because they're now so hard to find or just really difficult to to compensate for because they're expensive. So that's part of the fluid aspect of it. You got to be thinking about it, because if you kind of sit back and let it ride, it's going to impact you really fast, right? And so you're going to be like, holy shit, this, yeah. So that's always kind of in our conversations.
It's so funny, man, just talking to, different business owners these last 2 years. The number one word that everyone says is pivot. Like, it's just, it's literally like,
Right.
it was like, everyone's mantra is like, pivot. And, nah, man, I remember just the conversations we were having, over these last 2 years, and both of us trying to figure it out, and the similarities, and things are opening them back up in the sense of restaurants being closed down. And it's really cool just to see how you guys, made it to the other side, because a lot of people did not. So yeah, that's super impressive.
It was a long tunnel to go through. You know what I mean? Like, there was many tunnels to go through. You're like, right. Oh, we're good. No shit.
Right.
So, I think that's the part of, and just like speaking to other entrepreneurs that are in this game, whether it's hospitality, retail, or anything else like in real estate, these are the things when things like COVID happen, you have to really, this is why it matters when you're signing that lease. This is why it matters when you're signing those contracts, because there's stipulations in there that you may or may not think through as much, because it may or may not matter at the moment. But when things get hard, the first thing you do, everybody, you go look at your agreement. You may not have looked at it since you signed it, but you got to go look at it. And you're like, right. What am I on the hook for? And how do I get out? And so those are things I think are really important when because sometimes a lot of us are like, to a certain extent, you have to have a certain amount of hubris and be like, I'm going to make this work. Like I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. In that making it work, sometimes we just sign on something that you're like, yeah, that's not going to be a problem. I can make it work. And so things like COVID showed us, a lot of us, and sometimes it wasn't so much that the concepts weren't doing well, and sometimes the deals that they had with the spaces, or the deals that they have with whatever, they just weren't good deals. And so you're just like, man, I can't believe it was working when sales were happening, but now I can't make it work.
One question I want to ask you too, New Orleans, I don't really think about, there's not one time when there's not something going on. I mean, like there's always something going on in New Orleans. So in hospitality, is there any type of like seasonality, like a slow period for you guys?
Yeah. I mean, it's weather dependent here, The summer is hot. Things are slower, much slower, really? Just for the whole city. Okay. Yeah, much slower. And then it picks back up in the fall. The winter is so. I wouldn't say it's like the most popping, but obviously we're in, springtime in New Orleans is like the best. Best. And we're now like, there's been like, it's funny, my wife and I were talking about it, like, wait, what? So-and-so just had a whatever festival. And I'm like, we haven't like, it wasn't even in my mind to look up what festivals are happening this weekend, because it's been 2 years. So we're just like, oh shit, it is happening. So like French Quarter Fest is coming back, Jazz Fest. We had like Buku last, like 2 weeks ago. Things are really coming back up. So, but the summer is a seasonal, and you got to be prepared for that season.
Yeah, man. Springtime in New Orleans, I've said this multiple times, there's not too many other places in the world that I'd rather be than New Orleans in the springtime. It is the best.
I agree.
So speaking about Jazz Fest and all that, so people coming out there for that kind of stuff, like you said, springtime, Bacchanals is a place that if you haven't been before, it's a great experience. And Elysian Bar is just as, impressive. I mean, you guys got the courtyard, you have a really good restaurant, great bar. What is there to say to those people who come out there who are like, I don't want to go off of bourbon. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Not shameless plug, but I mean, what can you really tell them? Like, tell people who really may have first time hearing about, Bacchanal or Elysian Bar.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bacchanal just made 20 years in February. And the Elysian just made 3. And both places are experience-driven places. And the idea in both places is to kind of have an easy lifestyle, right? Come in, enjoy yourself, and vibe out, and enjoy the surroundings, enjoy the products that are offered to you, whether it's through wine, through the cocktails, through the food, through the music. So yeah, it's just, and overall, anybody that's coming to New Orleans, I always challenge them to see the city beyond the French Quarter. There's
Right.
plenty of things to do in the French Quarter. It's an incredible place, but there's so much more beyond downtown New Orleans, and the city is, it's really magical for a small city that we have, and it has a lot to offer. So whether it's coming to the Elysian bar or Bacchanal, or going to some of the neighborhood restaurants that are in bars that are around in the Marigny or the Bywater, Treme, all these places have really awesome places, lots of history, and lots of people that are committed to creating really magical experiences. So overall, I'm always an advocate for the city.
If you don't go out there, check out Elysian Bar and Bacchanal's while you're out there, you a sucker. No, I'm joking. But no, for real, you got to check it out though. I mean, there's so much to enjoy, and those two are like two major staples. I know you got to go here soon. A couple other things I want to ask you about, because you are, I wouldn't say Mr. Academia or anything, but like, you know, you're well accomplished as far as your education. But, you know, how do you feel in this day and age? Do you think education is important?
That's a great question, man.
He's like, you ain't gonna fuck up my connects. I ain't saying it.
No. I'm more and more inclined to say that it depends on more and more. Like if you asked me 5 years ago, I'd be like, absolutely. Yeah. You know, like no question asked. I think more and more, like it is very much being able to learn. There's so many ways to learn that are disposable and available. I would say the thing that is probably to me is rounding out that education, right? And so when I think about it, is making sure maybe taking a gap year, going to travel, living in like, you know, a different country for a year. That's the level of learning you do that, especially in maybe a new language or a language you were trying to learn. That right there, that's like on the ground learning, right? And you evolve, especially when you're that young. You know, the maturity level to me is like college can easily be just kind of like a quick party session, and then you're like, what did I learn? Right. You know, and so like getting some maturity. I know I could have used it, and then maybe going into school, if it's just for the experience, great. Hypothetically, hopefully you have some money behind you, like whether you get scholarships and you're not getting into debt, because I think debt is really the scary part of all of this, right?
Right.
So that's what I would say. It's like really having that game plan and getting as much exposure.
Can't we be real though? A lot of people can't afford to take a damn gap year. You know what I mean?
Right.
For those people who may not be as fortunate and trying to figure it out, you know, it's really difficult, and it depends, man. I'm on the fence about it, because like if you don't have the finances, what are you going to do? You could just tell somebody, oh, you know, maybe go get a high paying commission based job. And, you know, I think those are sales skills are very important, but
absolutely
having the access and exposure to even get in the doors of promising situations like that is difficult. So, you know, I think personally, I just want to say that like if you, and I don't really know anyone who does at 18, but if you have the ability to have it all figured out, you know exactly what you want to do. Like, oh, I'm going to go on a doctor plan. I'm going to be a lawyer. Go get an education. But other than that, it's just like, I don't really know if I can tell you yes or no.
No, I'm with you. I think I would say fundamentally for me is like at that age, if you haven't had the opportunity, or if you can, or if you can, you know, literally hustle through it, move away from where you grew up. You know, go somewhere that's new, that challenges you, you know, in life, because I think that builds character, that builds maturity, that builds, you know, different experiences. Oftentimes it's easy to stay comfortable where you are, stay with your parents or live with your cousin, and you kind of like stay in the same group. And I think part of learning and growing is to go in places that are strange and different, and going through the hard of learning how to, you know, build a new friendship group, build a new community, meet new people. That there's a tremendous amount of learning in that. and succeeding in somewhere like that. And so that to me is like, whether it's a gap year or just skipping college and going to do it somewhere else, get away from where you grew up in. You could always go back, but go somewhere new and learn how to survive and thrive in it.
No, that's a great point. I think above anything, it's really just that exposure that we're talking about, and being exposed to, so many different things. When I went off to undergrad, I just knew I wanted to like be in a different environment, and that opened me up to so much. And I was, naive to a lot of things, and so
we all are.
Yeah, and I definitely probably couldn't tell you much that I learned from undergrad that I still, retained, but just those experiences, man, like the school of hard knocks is like, it's really difficult. Those certain safety nets is like, I don't know if you really can gamble. I don't even know if it is a gamble or not, but, not take that set path that, that they tell us to do. Me personally, I think it's more difficult. Jobs aren't really paying great, even if you have an education. It's really damn difficult to get something out there without a 4-year degree, right?
It is hard. And I think the debt aspect is what, to me, is very triggering, right? I think that's a hard, shit. I'm still paying some of my undergrad and definitely my grad school, and like, it's a big chunk of money. And like, you kind of assume like, one day I'll pay it off or whatever, or I'll make so much money, I'll pay it. It takes a while. And then if you want to experience things, you don't want to be like hostage to that. Right. And that's the part that nobody ever talks about until like you're in it. So it's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Right.
So I think, being thoughtful about how you approach it and then having a direction, right? Because 4 years can go really fast, especially when you're like between 18 and 24, like things fly. Right. And so, having a direction and challenging yourself to really self-direct to grow and build your character and learn. Absolutely. You can succeed.
Ain't that crazy how we both have MBAs and we don't do shit that we went to go to school for?
We administer businesses, man.
But we were in the entrepreneurship program.
Yeah.
So that's an expensive ass.
It is expensive, and it's expensive 2 years. You know what I mean? You take time off of work. We did full time.
Right.
So, there's a whole different conversation as well. Like grad school, what does it mean? Especially business schools. That's a whole can of worms that you and I think we can do a whole nother show just about that.
Right. Well, yeah, man, I know you got to go, bro. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, man. This is awesome.
Yeah, you didn't have to do this. Man, this has been great. And again, like that's really where Mastermind started from, is just our conversations. We literally just chop it up like this from time to time. We definitely kept it PG-13. Sometimes we talk crazy and reckless. Appreciate it. Adrian, where can people, find you as far as on the socials? I have to put that out there. And I'll post it here as well.
Yeah, easily. Adrian on the go, GEAUX, the Louisiana Go. You can find me there. DM me if you have any questions, especially about entrepreneurship, anything I can answer.
For real.
Easy peasy, And and then
said it was easy. For everybody who's not in the South listening to this, everybody's like, that shit ain't easy. But,
right. And then you talked about the Elysian and Bacchanal, and also I think DM me if anybody does have questions about the industry or anything like that. I'm always happy to answer. Right. So and thank you for putting this platform on. I think this is awesome. I think having candid conversations with other people that are like us, that have different experiences, that are, that have learned some lessons, and, sharing them actually can help a lot of people, navigate further and avoid some of these speed bumps that we had to hit. I think those are the things that are really important for building community, but also building and having more of us thrive, especially Black and brown entrepreneurs that are really trying to take things to the next level. I think a lot of it will help if we all support each other and share these things. So thank you for putting on a platform and making that headway for it.
My guy, man, I appreciate it. All right, Adrian. Well, it's been a pleasure, man. I know you got to get back to work. Man, I appreciate it, and talk to you guys soon.